Hello, this is Maurice and welcome to Tech Photo Blog. This is episode number 1. This week I'm going to talk a little bit about lightning and how to photograph it. When you see a strike of lightning, it's not actually just a single strike. There's a bunch of micro strikes there. And each of those micro strikes is well under a millisecond in duration, but the time from the first micro strike till the last micro strike is around 100 milliseconds. So that means you have 100 milliseconds or so to take a photograph of lightning. Now, one thing you need to consider when photographing lightning is that on modern DSLR cameras, there's a delay from when you press the shutter until the shutter actually opens. And that shutter delay on average is around 60 milliseconds. In the show notes, I'll actually link to a page that has the exact shutter delay for a bunch of different models of cameras because it does vary somewhat from model to model. So that means that you have 100 milliseconds to take the photo of lightning and there's a shutter delay of 60 milliseconds. So you have around 40 milliseconds to actually take the photo of lightning. Human response time, on the other hand, is around 160 milliseconds. So that's just way too long. So you wouldn't be able to sort of watch for lightning and then try to hit the shutter button. You just wouldn't be fast enough. So this is why people who don't want to use external gear or extra hardware, they'll oftentimes take photographs of lightning at night with a long exposure time of like 5 seconds or so and just do exposure after exposure, waiting to get lucky with one. And that actually works pretty well as long as you want to do it during nighttime and don't mind sitting there and hitting the shutter button yourself. But there are limitations. You couldn't, take photos during the daytime and you have to sit there and actually hit the button on your camera. One way to, one improvement on this would be to use some external hardware that senses the lightning and then activates your camera. And there's a lot of different triggers out there that'll do this if you use Google. I made one about a few years ago where you actually solder just a few different electrical components together and you're able to, make a really low-cost solution for those who, like to do it themselves and are willing to do a little soldering. And I'll actually put a link to that in the show notes. What I want to talk about now, though, is for those who don't want to solder their components together or understand how that part works, there's a solution I put together called the Camera Axe. Now the Camera Axe is a really flexible triggering system. It does a lot of different things, but today I'll show you how to use it for taking photos of lightning. This is the Camera Axe. One trick I use quite a bit is holding the activate button when I turn it on to reset all of the values to their default. So we have a known starting position. If I hit the menu button a few times, I'll get to the general settings, and here you can turn the backlight on and off. The reason to turn it off would be to save battery life. I'm just going to leave it on for now. And if I go back to the general sensor menu, this is where you actually set up the trigger for the lightning. The first setting is sensor 1. So we're actually going to plug a sensor into the sensor 1 port, and we're using the light sensor here. This is just to detect the lightning. And a delay of 0 milliseconds is good for lightning. The bulb doesn't matter too much for lightning. Because you're probably going to have your camera set to a certain shutter duration. If you don't want to if you want to set your camera to bulb mode, you could set control the bulb duration from the Camera Axe. Pre-focus isn't important for lightning. Now the trigger type is something that you are going to want to change. So you can either trigger on a high setting, a low setting, or a threshold. And we actually want threshold. So that's basically going to detect a difference or a change in light, which is really what you want to do for lightning. You don't necessarily want to trigger on a high or a low value, you want to know when the lightning has changed quickly, and that's what threshold will tell you. So now the second value here that's constantly changing between 3 and 6 is the values that are being read by the camera axe, and that sort of gives you an idea of what your sort of default threshold value is in the environment you're in. So basically we want to set this to something a little higher than just sort of what the threshold we're seeing. So I think I'll set it to 10 here. That seems like a pretty good value. Power setting doesn't really matter for this sensor. So okay, that should be all the settings you need to detect lightning. You will need to plug in a camera. So I'm gonna zoom out here a little bit, and here's our camera. Now I'm just plugging in the camera cable, and we'll plug this into camera flash 1, and then we're going to use just a standard flash to sort of test things here. This will simulate the lightning. And the lightning sensor there. Okay, so now we just hit activate, and that should activate the camera axe. So now if lightning happens, the camera axe should take a picture. It works. Now there's one last sort of trick I want to show you guys about actually taking better lightning pictures and making sort of the light sensor work a little bit better than it would by, just having it sit out there and detect lightning. Because if you did that, the problem is that if you just had the lightning sensor sitting there looking for lightning, it could detect lightning, from the sides where the camera isn't actually able to see. So what you want to do is you want to put the camera, you want to put the lightning sensor sort of here in the viewfinder where you'd actually be seen. So one really easy way I found to do that is to just take a piece of foam, stick the lightning sensor in like this, and sort of just get it on the camera. And something as simple as that actually works pretty well to hold the lightning sensor in place during the lightning storm, and then the light sensor is only seeing what your camera will see through the lens. That works really well. If you want something a little bit fancier, on eBay they sell these eyepieces like this that just slide off of most cameras. You need a different eyepiece for different types of cameras, but like I said, eBay, you can get these for maybe $4 or something a piece, including shipping. And then you can glue a light sensor on, so it's something like this. Then it's a little bit nicer because it just sort of, clicks into place, and it's a little bit easier to, put it on and off without having it look sort of weird with the foam. And on this one, I found that if you leave a little gap there in the side, you can still look through and make sure that everything is lined up as you want. So that's kind of a nice feature. We'll end with a few pictures taken from the camera axe of lightning. Thanks for watching.